Well, while Secretary Kerry is headed to Cairo to negotiate, we are learning he may have tipped his hand over the weekend when a hot microphone caught some comments he was making to an aide before an interview with our own Chris Wallace. That may reveal his true position on Israel's supposedly precise attacks on Hamas and how the U.S. should react. Listen to this.
It's a hell of a pinpoint operation. It's a hell of a pinpoint operation.
Right. It's escalating significantly, and it just underscores the need for ceasefire.
We've got to get over there.
Yep.
Thank you, John. I think John go tonight. I think it's crazy to be sitting around.
Brooke Goldstein is a human rights attorney and director of the Lawfare project. So that was supposedly, John Kerry caught by surprise while he was sitting for round-robin interviews with all the Sunday talk shows. Our own Chris Wallace was the only one to confront him with it. He said it while the cameras were on him, while his microphone was on him, and then people started to question, why is he criticizing Israel? A hell of a pinpoint operation. He's basically suggesting it isn't a pinpoint operation, that it's not effective, that they're killing a lot of civilians. And Chris Wallace asked him about it. Did he tip his hand? Was that an intentional thing?
Who's to say it was intentional, but what it seems to show is that Kerry is imputing by his sarcastic statement that there's some sort of bloodlust on behalf of the Israeli Defense Forces, that it's a hell of a pinpoint operation when said sarcastically means they're doing the opposite. They're engaged in indiscriminate attacks, and they're not doing everything they have to do.
What does that tell you about his state of mind, about the administration's state of mind, if he speaks for them?
There's been a lot of interesting statements coming out of this administration. I mean, Kerry also said it's important Hamas steps up and be reasonable and understand you need to save lives. And what it shows to me is that Kerry has a fundamental misunderstanding of the motive of Hamas, a terrorist organization whose #1 goal is not to save lives, but to increase civilian casualties. It would be as if you said to ISIS or Al-Qaeda, hey guys, come on, don't you just want to save civilian lives?
And yet, you've got the Palestinians who have partnered with Hamas, a group the United States of America recognizes terrorists. But when the Palestinian political spokesman comes out tonight and speaks with the political leader, speaks with our own Bret Baier, here is how he phrases it. Listen, this is #1.
Absolutely. I am 100% sure of that. Even Secretary Kerry made jokes about the pinpoint policy of the Israeli army. When you bombard people and kill 550 civilians and injure 3,700, it is clearly an attack that is aiming at civilians. During this conflict, 20 Israelis have been killed. 18 of them were soldiers and 2 civilians. I am sorry for every death, whether it's Israeli or Palestinians. But the numbers and the facts are very clear. And they do undermine the whole Israeli propaganda that is trying to dehumanize Palestinians as if their lives are not as precious as Israeli lives.
It's interesting because we're getting contradictory statements coming out of the Palestinian Authority. On the one hand, they air continually television programs that incite genocide, not just against the Jewish people, but call for violence against the West. And then on the other hand, you have the Palestinian Authority ambassador to the United Nations that just a couple days ago accused Hamas of engaging in war crimes because it indiscriminately targeted Israeli civilians. And you have the Arab media coming out and accusing Hamas of endangering Palestinian lives because it is forcing those civilians to operate as human shields. So what we need now from the Obama administration is a statement of moral clarity, and instead what we're seeing are statements of moral equivalence. Israel has a right to defend itself, but we're concerned with the loss of human lives, without mentioning who is directly responsible for the loss of human lives. A statement
of Hamas, and they're so upset about the deaths that have taken place this weekend, but it was Hamas that rejected the peace treaty that was just that was brokered by Egypt, that Israel accepted. They wanted the ceasefire. Hamas rejected it.
Hamas also rejected a temporary humanitarian ceasefire and continued to fire rockets while the Israelis were attempting to deliver humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people. Hamas has access to the Palestinian people to bomb shelters. There's a YouTube film right now circulating of Gazan youth telling the world how Hamas is preventing civilians from fleeing their homes and from taking shelter after the Israeli warning. So a statement of moral courage and clarity from this administration would unequivocally condemn Hamas.
Would that have happened under any president? Would President Reagan have done that, in other words? Or does the American president need to at least sound like he can understand both sides?
There are not two sides to a conflict between one side that values human life and another that has repeatedly, expressly, publicly stated that not only are we willing to take the lives of civilians on the Israeli side, but we are willing to use our own children in the process. The only chance for there to be a minimum loss of civilian lives is the complete disarmament of Hamas, an Islamist terrorist organization that is outlawed here in the United States.
Wow. Puts it in perspective. Brooke, thank you.
Thank you.